Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm excited. I have my friend Michael Buzinski with me. Michael, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do at Buzzworthy?
Oh, well, I try to do as little as possible at Buzzworthy. We'll probably get into this, but my job is I own a marketing firm. Let's just start there first. Marketing strategy firm called Buzzworthy Strategies. We've been in business for 21 years, and we work with B2B service-based businesses. So these are businesses serving businesses, and they're usually founder-led. So they're pretty much the main gear driving the boat, if you will. And so a little bit about me, my background as a young person, before I was even in my 20s, I was in sales and marketing. I hated food services. And I was like, I got to get something. And before you have a degree of any sort or even a high school diploma, the only thing you can get into is sales and marketing. And only if you can't get into marketing unless you're good at sales. So I was luckily natural sales. So I got invited to do marketing. Spent 10 years in the Air Force, got out 2005, started BuzzBiz Studios, which is a media production house that turned into a creative agency and now has morphed into a marketing strategy firm. So we really focus on the strategies there. And so our main goal is to take founder-led B2B firms and make them founder-free. And so when I talk about I try to be useless, is that I feel that if the owner is useful in their business, they're useless to acquisition or selling their company. So if you're building your company to eventually sell, and we all should be doing that regardless of if we're wanting to sell now, or maybe when we want to retire, God forbid something happens to you and it can run on its own. So a business that can't run on its own cannot be sold. Oh, well, for a lot of money, I should say that. You're going to lose a lot of multiples when you don't have a revenue engine that runs on its own and a marketing operating system that runs on its own. So we build those around the offerings and whatnot, but we systemize all that stuff so other people can do it. And that makes the owner useless, which is great.
Love it. Now, I'm going to try to refrain from B puns, but it's going to come up. In marketing, you have the B roll and you need the B to B.
Right. Or what we call boring to buzzworthy marketing.
B2B. There you go. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you've got going on right now. You mentioned you've got one book out and one book coming. So let's talk about the books, and then we're going to get into the focus to focus piece.
Okay, sounds good. So the book that's live right now, it's been around since about 2021, 2022. It's called The Rule of 26. And so this came about. It's a website marketing book that basically teaches you how to look at your website without getting confused by all the key performance indicators or KPIs, right? So you get marketers out there who will tell you, oh, you need to look at these KPIs and that KPI and It's all these numbers, and it gets really confusing. And that's on purpose. They figure they keep you confused. They can basically create smoke screens and keep their job longer, right? They're looking for that retention. And so if they give you what we call vanity metrics to chase, and some vanity metrics might be indicator metrics. So they're basically saying, hey, as this rises, you should start seeing revenue. Yeah. But I said, no. 2021 is when we had a huge influx of brick and mortar going to having to do business online, right? Yeah. So websites became very important. But they're like, hey, how do we do website marketing? So it's like, okay, well, there's only 3 things you really need to focus on as an owner that tie to your revenue. And so the rule of 26 states that if you increase your website traffic, unique traffic, by 26%, and your conversion rate, so that means for every 100 to come in, what percentage become leads, and your average revenue per client that comes in from your leads, you increase all 3 of those by 26%, you'll get 100% more revenue. So it's a leveraged approach. Okay. And everything else is either feeding to those or their vanity metrics. And I'd say that when I was doing the research, there's 168 metrics, KPIs that you can track on Shopify alone. HubSpot's like 130 something. Yeah. Google Analytics in over 100, right? I'm a marketer. I don't want to look at that many numbers.
I'm a big believer that nobody in a business should have more than 3 KPIs they're tracking. And I mean that across the board. The owner can't keep track of more than 3.
Usually, yeah. There's one, my new framework has 4 that spits out a 5th. But I mean, you're talking the entire revenue engine. So being able to say, hey, is my website working? And you have whoever's reporting to you give you 3 KPIs for that, definitely. And those should then feed up into a main 3 KPIs. Totally agree with you there. You know, so what is it? My daily revenue, what's my, or maybe it's gross profit versus my expenses. I mean, you could get down to those 2 and say, hey, if those both are looking good, I don't have to look at anything. We're good.
Yeah,
I'm going to go off to the next thing. If they're not, then I'm like, okay, so who has KPIs that are feeding that might not be looking as good as they should. And then you start getting down. And I think that's what good dashboards do. And that's what marketers usually don't do well, is dashboards. Because they have to live by the numbers, die by the numbers.
Yeah. I have a friend, his entire business, he builds dashboards, and we geek out about it. But that's the key is, if you measure everything and everything's important, nothing is important.
Right.
It's like, it's knowing when to look at the dials and go, oh, I'm going to go deeper on this. So yeah, we'll have some fun, but that's at the top level. There should be 3, 4 things, not 100, never 100. It's never 100.
No. I mean, we can't even keep track of more than, you're not supposed to supervise more than 7 people.
Yep.
So even if you just said, hey, listen, there's 7 KPIs for the entirety of my whole company. So you might have cash flow numbers versus profit numbers. You might have some accounts receivable numbers, you know, so how much money is out there, right? That we haven't collected type of numbers, and then a couple of revenue numbers, you know. I mean, yeah, it's, I would say if you can get it down to 3, that's really good, because that means you've simplified your business enough to where it is now scalable. And a lot of people, that's what they fail to be able to do, is simplify their business down enough to where other people can run it. So that's why they're stuck as the main gear in their business, is because they've made it so complicated nobody else can run it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, some of the best business advice, I used to work with a lot of trades, and they were simple guys. You know, they had a truck, they had a team, and one guy taught me, he said, if I can't figure out the health of my business on the back of an envelope in the truck on the way, I got problems.
I love it.
And I was fascinated because I was a spreadsheet guy, and I'm like, oh, we can have all these, I can tell you, you know, profit per job, blah, 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 blah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is like, if you have, so if you're a service-based business, you know, this is what we work with. If you have project managers who are responsible for their KPI that feeds to that, that's their most important number, right? I think there is actually a book called, I'm looking at my library, I think it's called the most important number. Your most important number is what it's called, by Lee. Oh, I can't read it from here, but it's Lee somebody. Your most important number, and he talks about that. Like, hey, everybody has their set of numbers. So it's not that there's only 3 numbers for the whole business is important, but for you as the founder, you should only have a handful of numbers that you're looking at. Somebody said it really well the other day. It's like being a spider in the middle of a spider web. Yeah. Right. And so they're standing on just a small part of the web, but they can feel everything in the web. So if your KPIs are properly set, if each of those, one of those handful of KPIs get moved or tickled, right, on the web, you know, oh, I need to go that way. I'm going to go that direction to find the problem. And then you're starting to talk to the people who are responsible for those KPIs, because that's their most important number. And now you can get down to the bottom of it.
And I think that's one of the problems with a lot of traditional marketing and sales is, if the marketer doesn't know what's important, they're going to show it all to the client. And then the client's going to look at it and go, is it good? But
yeah, confusion and misunderstanding. Like if you can't explain it to your client, then you probably don't understand it well enough either.
Love it. All right. So that's rule of 26. Now you've got a new book coming out.
Yes. Build a founder-free revenue engine and escape the founder-led trap.
I love it. So what inspired that book?
That book was inspired by my last 20 years of always looking to be founder free or useless in my business. And really finally coming to, I've served over 1,200 companies for the last 20 years. And I started looking back at the data and going, okay, so what is the underlying theme across all businesses that we have worked in? And one of the biggest things that we see, the biggest frustration, is that is the founder-led frustration. So if I may kind of dive into entrepreneurialism real quick. So there's 3 phases of being an entrepreneur. Okay, most of us go into business because we want to become financially independent. We want to be able to print our own money. Now, why do we want that? Because we want freedom, which is the second phase, entrepreneurial freedom. So if you don't have independence, financial independence, you can't really be a founder, or you can't have entrepreneurial freedom, right? But the problem is this: we wrap ourselves into our businesses so tight that we get the financial freedom because we can print money, but we can't enjoy entrepreneurial freedom because we're tied. We're the main gear. We're the bridge. We're the glue that holds our business together. We're too useful.
We're the hub. Everything goes through us.
Right. So, where people find the most joy in entrepreneurial freedom is the ability then to provide impact, community impact, industry impact, whatever impact you're trying to make, right? So if you look at the Bill Gates, they got the Bill Gates Foundation, right? So he was financially independent much, much longer ago than we were all in business, right? But he was a big gear in Microsoft. And it wasn't really until he was able to separate himself from Microsoft to where he was, you started hearing more about the Bill Gates Foundation, him and his wife working, vaccinating against polio in Africa, and all the things that he does. And regardless of whether you agree with him or not, or support him, that's his prerogative, and he gets to do whatever he wants because he has entrepreneurial freedom. Right? Yeah. Now, he's a billionaire. I get that, right? I totally understand that. But that boils down to us little guys too. Yeah. Right? I've been founder free 2 times in the last 20 years, right? The only thing that will drag you back in is when you're making big pivots with your business, or you're looking to increase, do a really rapid growth phase. You usually will get sucked back in, okay? And that's okay, because you're doing something different and you need to be in there and really helping guide that. Now, does that mean you're back in the day-to-day? No. But it does mean that you might not be able to disappear for 30 days and come back with a actually stronger business. So I looked at the client lifestyle. So I'm looking at everything from the revenue side of things, right? So operationals, you're going to have to talk to an operations guy, okay? How to build, run a business that fulfills on its own. It doesn't need you, right? So if you read Michael Gerber, E-Myth, or Mike McAllowitz, that is Clockwork. These books will teach you operationally how to get out of the way, become useless on the operation side. So the honeycomb flywheel is my framework. And that basically lines out the 6 stages of the client life cycle. And in B2B service-based businesses, people are serving people. So each stage requires people. And most of us that are founder-led are intertwined with all 6 stages. We're going to go into the stages because there's 6 of them. That's it. I'm not going to go through all of this.
Detailed episode for another day, right?
Right, exactly. But the whole thing is this: we talked about metrics, is that when we look at all 6 of those stages, we're being sold as founders that, we need this for this stage, and this for this stage, and this for this stage. And you start getting all those KPIs that are like, okay, so what do I fix first? Yeah. And this is what happens when we end up with what we call the 50-50 marketing paradox. 50% of what you're doing is making you money, but you don't know which 50%. Right? And so now you're stuck, because what if I let go of the thing that's actually making me money? Yeah. Right? So what the flywheel does is it says, hey, listen, all of this is intertwined. Everybody wants to say, client success is one thing. And you have people out there, they're client success consultants, and they're really good at what they do, but they only look at the revenue engine through their lens. And so they charge a buttload of money for just that. And so then the founder goes there, well, if I do that, then I'll make more money, right? But you're leaning on 1/3 of the pie, because there's 3 parts of the revenue engine, right? There's the marketing, there's the sales, and the client success, right? And so a lot of people are like, well, I just need sales. Under 7 figures, you can really not worry too much about a marketing operating system and just go sell $1 million, right? Yeah. And that I usually tell people that's what you should be doing, right? So until you're getting close to 7 figures, you probably don't have offer market fit. So you don't have something that's actually scalable, because you can't systemize things that are not scalable. Yeah. So if you're still doing custom quotes or custom fits, or everything's custom every time they come in, oh, we take a look at them, even if that's required, like in marketing, that's very required. Every business is different. But we have found a way to systemize the first problem they have, which is the 50-50 marketing paradox. Let's cure random acts of marketing by doing a diagnostic and actually show you what is going on, what's working and what's actually not working, what's costing you money, what's costing you opportunity, what's costing you brain power and bandwidth and all these things. And the funny thing is that the more I dug into these, there's only 4 KPIs that we worry about. Now I'm not going to bore you with that, because that algorithm itself doesn't really tell us anything. But what we do know is that if we have these 4 KPIs, and there's 6 stages, and every 2 stages is owned by one of the 3 arcs, that means we have to work together. Yeah. We have to have sales work out feeding the marketing. We need marketing feeding off of what client success is getting, right? We need to be looking all that. And so when we're looking at one of these 4 knobs, we just call them flywheel knobs, if we work on one of these flywheel knobs together, how much faster are we going to get results? Right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, because people tell me I oversimplify, but I believe literally there are 3 areas of the business. You mentioned it. It's how do you attract new clients? Mm-hmm. How do you convert prospects to clients? Mm-hmm. And how do you deliver? And everything else I can put in those 3 buckets. But it's like a wheel or a stool. If they're not equal length or balanced, you're going to fall over. And
oh yeah. Yeah, we do it. Yeah. So we look at it as 3 slices of the same gear, right? And the revenue engine, right? And so if you start taking spokes out of one section of a gear, every time it goes and contacts a human, it's going to slip,
glitch,
and then a glitch, right? You're not going to have that connection, right? It's going to go away. And so that's literally where, like, when the revenue engine, it's commonly called the revenue engine, because you're producing something, right? You're either producing opportunities, or you're producing sales, or you're producing outcomes for your clients. In the B2B service-based space, that's all you really only exist to solve problems.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where we were talking in the green room, it's like where most people fail in their revenue engines is they're not selling the same outcome. Right. And you mentioned the focus to focus. People, how many times you talk to an entrepreneur is like, oh, so what do you do? Well, we do a lot of things. Oh yeah, who do you do that for? Oh, anybody that ... So you try to do all the things for all the people. That ain't going to do very good for you, because now the cost of you doing business, for every complexity you create, you decrease profitability. And people are like, oh, it's not that hard. That's like anytime you have a variable. So if you have 3 services versus 2 services, you're 100%, technically it's like 100% more complicated.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how they do the math on that, but that's how it goes, right? And so if you have 1 service and you go to 2 services, it's 200 times more complicated.
Yeah.
Right? So if you go to 3 to 4, I think it's like something like 75% more complicated, because you're creating that many more variables.
Yeah.
Right? And that right there is what keeps people at under 7 figures. That's why 95% of companies will never see the north side of $1 million.
Yeah.
Right. This is the crazy thing. Out of those million, 98% will never see 3 million.
Yep.
And of those who do get to 3 million, 99% will never see 10 million.
Yeah. And then once you get up to the billion, it's like,
oh, billions, like one in you have better chances of winning the lottery than you do creating $1 billion company.
It's funny, and I'll share my perspective on the owner's trap. When you have, and I've been there, and I'm sure you have, we're smart. We got a whole bunch of skills, and we're like, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we try to hire our first employee, we're scratching our head going, what's wrong with them? And it's like, oh, wait, in service, it's like, well, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. Problem is, the more things we do, the less likely it is we can become useless, because we need to hire a person for each of the roles that we walk around doing ourselves. And
even if you're a solopreneur, every time you shift gears, your efficiency goes down.
Yeah.
So that's your profitability. Efficiency is profitability, right? How efficiently do we move prospects through the sales cycle, to the onboarding cycle, through the retention cycle, to the expansion cycle? The efficiency in which you do that, we call it the flywheel velocity, right? And we measure it in cycle time, from the time it becomes a quality opportunity to the time that they get what we call time to value, right? Now, our time to value is not the first win or the second win. It's usually the third win that solidifies that relationship, that we know we have, like, for certain value, that says, hey, we're probably going to see our average client lifetime value out of that engagement. And we want to know how long that takes, because the shorter that is, the more, in a certain amount of time, the more lifetime value we're creating through our revenue engine. And that's really important.
I love that. And I think a lot of people really underestimate that time, and that's, in business, you've got time and money. And if you take too long, you run out of money. It's simple.
They call it a runway for a reason, right? What's your runway?
I remember when I first heard the phrase burn rate, and I was like,
oh, yes. Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, knowing. And so what we do is we have this 4 variable equation creates what we call flywheel velocity. So basically it says, of all 6 stages, every day we're creating X amount of lifetime value for the company. Every day. Yeah. So say it's 10,000. That means that we're getting, like, now some people are like, well, I just care about revenue. Or do you? Because revenue today doesn't mean profit tomorrow. Yeah. Because what if that revenue is costing you your profit tomorrow, because you're not expanding, you're not retaining, right? And so people are like, well, sales solves all. When you're small, sales solves all. Yeah. As you grow, not so much. Lifetime value solves all, because if you don't have lifetime value, and usually we're looking for some lifetime value to be longer than a year in service-based businesses, right? Yeah. And especially in B2B. Okay. And so, like, for us, we look at, I say in the book, try to keep it at like 3 years. Like, 3 years in business is a long time to have a client. I don't care what it is, right? And there's some businesses that are blessed that, like, credit card processing. I think I've had my same credit card processor for 10 years, at least, right? Yeah. So, but are they expanding anything? The only thing they're waiting for me to do is grow, because that's the only way they make more money. Yep. Right. But there's people like lawyers and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe, but they're also not something that you can nurture, right? Unless you have an ongoing, like, I have a fractional legal counsel. They're there. I pay a little bit of money every month. And then when I need them, done. Right? They're always there, but I'm always paying for them so that they always have that, right? And you need to find that model for you, because recurring revenue in a B2B space is the most profitable place to be, or the profitable asset to have is recurring revenue. When people ask you what your ARR is and you're able to say something about it, guess what? They're listening, because they know what you know what you're talking about when it comes to running a B2B service-based business.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of little levers in there. Now, let's talk about focus to focus. So what's the first focus?
That is, fix one clearly urgent struggle. If you can't boil what you do first for a client, how are they going to know they should be talking to you today? Yep. And if you're not clear what their pain point is, how are you going to explain how you're going to solve their problems? I firmly believe there is only one reason any B2B service-based business exists: to solve other businesses' problems. It's the only reason you exist, right?
It's funny because I work with a lot of exceptionally bright people, and it is fascinating because they're so obsessed with their tools and their solutions.
Mm-hmm.
When I ask them about the pain they solve, they almost always turn to the solution. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You've got to sit in that pain and understand it, because if you don't understand my pain, I don't believe you know how to solve it.
Right. Right. And when you solve the solution, you end up really selling to features.
Yeah.
And when you sell the everybody has the same features. I mean, it looks the same from the outside, right? Like, I can sit there and say, I fix random acts of marketing. Now, the great thing about when I say that is that there is a pain point embedded in the fact that I said random. Chaos. That's a problem. That's a pain point, right? So even though I told you what the outcome was, I intertwined the problem, the pain point, the symptom that you are experiencing, right? And so if you can do that, that's the first half. Remember, we talked about the people who try to sell all the things.
Yeah.
That's fixing all the things. The other side of the coin is all the people. So now we're going to fix one clearly urgent struggle for one clearly unique shareholder. Now I say shareholder, one, because it starts with an S, but two, sometimes our shareholder, the person who is who is actually going to have the problem is going to be different than the company's description that you're trying to serve.
It's funny, Michael, the first time I heard the word stakeholder, I went, ooh, what the hell's that? That sounds interesting. And it was funny because I've been in marketing and sales longer than I want to admit. It amazes me that people don't understand who the shareholder or stakeholder
shareholder, intertwined. Yes. Yeah, definitely. I actually like stakeholder better. I think I'm going to have to adopt that one for it. Thank you very much for that.
It's yours, use it away. But it's fascinating to me. One of the things I look for, and this is how I diagnose pain, is inevitably, if I know there's two shareholders or stakeholders, I know there's friction between them. And what can I do to reduce that friction? That's far more personal than, oh, we're going to increase your click rate on your website. Who cares?
Right.
If I can get your marketing and sales team to stop fighting, that's a big win.
Right. And so your stakeholder doesn't have to be a single person.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, but like what you were saying, like some people might look at that and say, oh, okay, so I need two focuses because I've got on the one side, I might have the founder and the co-founder, or maybe you have co-founders. One's the CEO, one's the COO. Okay. I had a client that was this just not too long ago. Okay. So the husband and wife, co-founders, CEO, COO, husband is the CEO, does all the marketing, all the sales. Okay. Wheels and deals.
Yeah.
And then the COO, the wife, handles all the business side and fulfillment. So I'm talking to the wife and she's talking about, and we're asking like, who is the CPA firm? And we're talking like, so who is the account manager? Who's responsible for the accounts that the CPAs are working on? She's like, no, you understand. The account manager is the CPA. Oh, okay. Well, I can see how you do that. I mean, there's law firms and CPA firms. It's like you basically kill what or you basically eat what you kill, right? I can get that. So who's the client success manager over that then? She had a point to herself. So the pain point was that her husband was selling whatever he could because he didn't systemize one urgent struggle for one unique stakeholder, right? So he's selling whatever he could to whomever who would buy. Now, they had a focus. They did CPGs, which is basically packaged goods. Okay.
Why am I hearing that phrase this week? This is like the 10th time it's come up.
I don't know. CPGs, consumer packaged goods. So, all right. And so they were focused on like drinks and food and drinks, right? Snacks and drinks. So their clients were basically consumer product goods, and they dealt with like inventory and inventory turnover and all that stuff. So they're really good at that, right?
Yeah.
And they were looking like, hey, we're running out of people to talk to, and the vertical that we're in is getting overcrowded with other CPAs, and we don't want to work with startups anymore. ... Right? So we're looking for a vertical for them, and that's what we help them do. But in that, we realized they had clients that were only working with the CPA. So the only person they could complain to was the COO.
Yeah.
So now you have a COO who's dealing with client complaints. Now, I'm going to go off on tangent here, because if you're a small business, I get it, right? But this is a 65 deep CPA firm.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not a like, oh, there's just a couple of us, so we all have to take the brunt of it. I totally get that.
Everybody wears many hats.
Right. We all wear many hats. But the sooner you can put somebody between the service provider, the fulfillment, what I call the front line, and one of the owners, once you can put somebody in between there, your customer care calls will be twice, if not 3 times more easier, I should say, to handle. Because think about it, when you're calling a big corporation, how many times do you have to complain in a single call before somebody who can actually do something talks to you? You know why they do that?
So you get bored and check out and disappear.
There's two. Yeah. So some companies, some companies, they go, well, if they're not getting there, if it's not big enough problem for them, they'll quit.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one. But for a good company, what they're doing is actually getting the piss and vinegar out of you before it's time to negotiate an actual solution.
Fair warning, I'm the opposite. The more I climb, the pissier I get.
But that's because they do it wrong.
Yeah.
So when they do it right, you'll know when you're in a place that actually cares about you, and they're making you go through that for your own good. Because when you go to negotiate and you're negotiating from anger versus understanding, that is a horrible place for you. You're not negotiating you're not negotiating from strength, right? And so what should happen is that, okay, so the service provider says, okay, you're going to need to talk to our customer care people. So your customer care people are just frontline people to see if there's a quick fix. Okay. So they do the quick fix. If they can't do the quick fix, then they hand them up to the next person who is who has a little bit more pull, and maybe your problem they can't solve your problem. Right. And so then it goes to the next person. So if they're doing it right, you're not having to tell the story, but you might have to tell certain parts of the story. So when they get on the phone, you'll know they're doing it right when they say this: I understand. What I understand right now is that your situation is ... Their first question is, so tell me about something you haven't already talked about or need more clarity on. Now you know you're in the right call center, because they're actually trying to solve problems, and they have guardrails so that they're, the frontline people aren't giving the farm away.
Yeah.
Just to get people off the phone. Right. But also that when it goes up those ladders, when you have a couple of steps in your ladders, now you're getting more information. Yeah. Right. And so anyway, we got off on a tangent on that, but I'm very fervent on that. You as the owner should not be the only client care person in your chain.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I don't see it as a tangent. My favorite topic is somewhere in the world, Steve Jobs has a quote that the role of good marketing is to make sales redundant or obsolete. And I believe that truly the role of good service is to reduce our reliance on marketing and sales, because if we get the service right, we will earn referrals.
Oh, 100%. 100%. If you can, so in the B2B space, what we look at is, I'll say a couple of our stages here that are in what you're talking about. We have your approve. That's basically your closing the sale, right? And in the approved space, we want to make sure we're saying yes to the right type of people.
Yeah.
If you have salespeople who are saying wrong just to get the sale, you have the bad culture. Yeah. In your sales department, right? Because now they're feeding fulfillment bad opportunities to succeed, right? So then and that's where we go into anchor. So anchor is basically getting the onboarding and your first win. We want to have that done in the first 2 to 4 weeks. You want to get your first win, right? That way, and that win is in alignment for what they bought. So whatever the salesperson was selling, remember that one urgent struggle, we should be able to solve some part of that, if not all of that first urgent struggle in those first 30 days. If we can do that, we now have them anchored to us. And we have permission to solve the next problem, because every problem you solve creates the next problem. Yeah. Right.
And honestly, I'm fascinated because, again, I deal with a lot of incredibly smart people who go, okay, we do this, and this. What do you want? And it's like, no. You're the expert. You tell me what I need. And if you've solved one of my pains, and I think I'm obsessed with onboarding as a way to reduce churn. And it fascinates me. I have a brilliant friend who's worked in high level enterprise. He's walked the halls of banks and things like that. And he's like, well, I try to build consensus and I want them to tell me what the next step is. And I'm like, and guess what his complaint is? My sales cycle is long. People don't make up their minds. And it's like, you're saying, what do you want to fix? My favorite example, I asked my teenage son how I could help him with school. And he said, Dad, if I knew what the questions were, I'd get the help I need, but I don't know where I'm stuck. And I don't know.
Yeah.
So we tend to ask the patient, which treatment do you want? And it's like, make the pain go away, like.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I'll give the audience this, because any vertical that's in the B2B space can probably do something esque to what we do. And we came to this because I'm becoming founder free for the third time, and I needed to find a systematic way to find out what needs to happen. So you were talking about the patient telling the doctor what needs to happen, right?
Yeah.
Well, the doctor can't tell you what needs to happen until they do what? Do a diagnostic, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a B2B space and you're doing services and you're solving problems, which we all know we are doing, how do you know what problem to solve until you've done some type of audit or diagnostic?
Yep.
The easiest thing to do is figure out a way for them to either, I don't care if it's free or paid, right? Like for us, we're about to add a free diagnostic that then goes into a deeper paid diagnostic, right? And that's a qualifying process for us so that we're not talking about a paid diagnostic for people who are not ready to buy clarity.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all we're talking about. Are you willing to invest in the good stuff that I can't automatically just give you in a book? Yeah. Like when I first wrote my book, I've written like 3 versions of this book that's coming out in March. Okay. And it every time I'm trying to tell them what's wrong. And I kept running into these walls of, well, actually, no, then they could have this and all the variables that go into it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure, and that's where we came down to the 4 knobs, was actually trying to figure out, how do we get rid of the variables? Well, when we got down to the point is that you can get 4 variables, but how to turn the variables have unique variables or unique variables depending on the company.
Yeah.
Right. If you have a quality opportunity problem in a $2 million company versus a $20 million company, you turn that knob very differently.
Very differently. And, it's funny. I implemented in my business, I have 3 assessments. There's a light one that's free. There's a medium one. Once we find out we're in the right ballpark, there's a medium one that's free. And then the third is paid. And I got a little pushback from people. And I actually had one client who said, well, just give me a solution. I'm like, you just want a solution. Okay, go do whatever. And he's like, okay. And he went off and I was like, oh my God, he's actually doing it.
The solution is taking the assessment so we can tell you what the actual problem is.
Yeah.
Right.
Like literally you came to me and said, my tummy hurts. Okay, right. Let's figure out, why does your tummy hurt?
Right.
But so I live and breathe in the pain space, because to me, if you can't solve the pain, why are we talking?
Right.
And
Well,
if
and
you
if
don't
you
have the pain, why am I selling to you?
Well, yeah, and that's the great thing about solving problems and overcoming pain points is that you're never selling anything.
Yeah.
Right? You stop selling, and people are just like, "Oh, you're such a great salesperson." I used to have a brick and mortar, and I would get called in to close on new clients and stuff like that. And then I'm like, "Why do you guys pull me in?" And he's like, "Every time you walk in the door, they start drinking the Kool-Aid, Buzz." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You just talk and they listen." I was like, "No, I listen and then I talk."
Yeah.
If you're not listening to their problems and you're not solving the problems, you end up selling. And when you start selling, you start losing.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion as far as that goes. And I know a lot of sales coaches and consultants and fractional sales officers and stuff like that will tell you the exact same thing. If you're selling, you're doing it wrong.
Yep. And that's the thing. There's the phrase pushback, and that's the death of sales. If you're pushing, people will push back.
Right.
And I tell people, I don't sell anything. I solve a problem, and if somebody feels it enough, they're going to come to me. I used to use the example. I get the odd migraine where I end up in emergency, and I'm like, give me meds, kill me, I don't care which. Just make it stop. And people are like, oh, well, you should try to, have you thought about this pain or that pain? And I'm like, until the migraine stops, we got nothing to talk about. But
I'm prone to kidney stones. And last time I had a kidney stone, they didn't believe me because I guess people fake a kidney stone to get the pain meds.
Really?
So I was in so much pain that they did give me something, but then they sent me to a CT scan to make sure that, oh, yep, you have it. Okay. But so they gave me enough to be there, but they weren't going to prescribe me anything to take home unless they saw the kidney stone. But yes, I totally get that. And I think that in business, the people with migraines should go to migraine specialists.
Yeah.
So some people are not set up for emergency triage. Okay. So you need to be very specific. When we talk about a unique stakeholder, it's unique. So if you're in the triage business, then do triage. If you're not, for us, I tell my staff, there is no such thing as a marketing emergency.
Nope.
If it is, we either we did something wrong or the client did something wrong.
Yeah.
Or maybe a combination of both. But that's a different conversation. Right? Because if I have too many of those with a client, I've got to really look at the client because we are professionals. We've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
Right. And so either they didn't listen and follow through on something, or we didn't communicate clearly enough of what they needed to do and follow through on stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so we always take responsibility because we're a fiduciary marketer. Right. And so we're always looking at what we call constructive dissatisfaction in that, hey, listen, no matter how well we did, how can we do it better? And when something doesn't go as well as we want, what did we do wrong? Let's make that better. Let's make sure that never happens again. There's one thing I tell my folks, you can make as many mistakes as you want working for me. Just don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, go branch out and find new ones.
I'm okay with that because it makes us better.
Yeah.
Right. And we're in marketing. You're never going to solve all the problems. You're never going to do it right every time, but you sure can learn if you're not learning from the mistakes. Right. And we talk about it all the time. Like there's nothing guaranteed in advertising. There's nothing guaranteed in marketing. There's nothing guaranteed in life. Yeah. Right. So if you only lose if you give up or don't learn from the mistakes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Love it. Well, I could talk to you all day, but I will be mindful of your time. Where can people go to learn more about you or connect with you and find out what Buzzworthy can do for them?
So you can go to buzzworthy.biz. That's our main website. But if you guys want a free copy of the new book, Build a Founder-Free Revenue Engine, you can go to buzzworthy.marketing/lighthouse. That's
love it.
Your listeners specifically.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show today and for sharing your insights. I love the focus on focus. The acronyms, they're great. So thank you.
Thanks. No worries. I appreciate you having me.